Hello, welcome to Manhwa Nuna, and today we will be recapping the manhwa called My Overly Sweet Boss. Please like, comment and subscribe to help the channel grow. Enjoy. Cha Ju-won unpacks his bags in the guest house while chatting with his secretary, Kim Woo-jin, on the phone. Woo-jin asks how the place is, and Ju-won casually says it's nice and well organized. That's when Woo-jin tells Ju-won that he had to scramble to tidy it up because Ju-won suddenly decided to visit the island, and calls Ju-won a CEO, which makes Ju-won laugh. Ju-won refers to himself as the boss, saying that he wants to finally take a long-postponed vacation, and asks Woo-jin if that is really something the assistant should be worked up about. Apparently, it is. Woo-jin, clearly exasperated, says that when the boss takes a vacation, the assistant is usually supposed to get one too. Ju-won tells him he should take it as a compliment. If he's still working, that just proves he's as important as the CEO himself. Woo-jin, unimpressed, demands to know when he's coming back. Ju-won, stretching his freedom, says he plans to enjoy the island thoroughly before returning. Woo-jin dramatically gasps, loud enough to make his coworkers stare. He quickly lowers his voice and hisses, "Are you out of your mind? What kind of CEO takes an open-ended vacation in the busiest season?" Ju-won brushes it off, reminding Woo-jin that he pays him well enough to handle things. He reassures him he won't be gone for more than a month and even throws in a casual buddy at the end. Woo-jin, annoyed, grumbles about being called buddy and asks when he will ever get a vacation. "Take over as CEO, Ju-won says, then hangs up. Stepping outside, he takes a deep breath and grins. It's been way too long since he had a proper break. Meanwhile, on a plane, Hyun Seo-jin stares dramatically out the window like a tragic heroine in a K-drama. A few months ago, she was just a hard-working secretary, booking a fancy Korean restaurant for her boss and his future son-in-law. Then Sarung, the boss's daughter, arrived with her fiancé, the man Seo-jin had never met before. Or so it should have been. The moment Seo-jin saw him, her blood ran cold. Oh, Hyun-jae introduced himself like a perfect stranger, but she knew better. Because for over 10 years, he had been her boyfriend. And just like that, without a word, he abandoned her. Seo-jin's life has been a mess ever since that day. She started slipping up at work, making mistakes she normally wouldn't, and soon enough, the complaints started rolling in. It wasn't long before she realized she couldn't keep it together. So, one day, she just quit. Her boss was shocked, but she had already made up her mind. Facing reality felt impossible, so she ran away from it instead. Ju-won steps outside the guest house, stretching before his run. Just as he's about to take off, a taxi pulls into the driveway. The door opens, and out steps Seo-jin. The sight of her makes him pause. She's stunning. She walks up to him and asks if this is the Sky Pension guest house. Then she apologizes for not making a reservation and asks if there are any rooms available. The question catches Ju-won off guard. Before coming here, Woo-jin had told him he'd bought a guest house, a place that quietly shut down because it was too secluded to attract customers. Which means this is no longer a guest house. It's Ju-won's private property. Seo-jin waits for an answer, then asks to see the boss. Ju-won considers telling her the truth. That would be the normal thing to do. Instead, for reasons he can't quite explain, he tells her he's in charge and that there are rooms available. He leads her inside and shows her to a room, mentioning that she's the only guest at the moment and that he'll be on the first floor if she needs anything. She asks about the price. That's when it hits him, he has no idea. He starts overthinking it, wondering what a room like this usually costs and whether it's peak season. He gets so lost in thought that he just stands there, completely silent. Seo-jin snaps him out of it, and he quickly asks how long she plans to stay. When she says she hasn't decided, he tells her he'll give her the cost after making a quick call. He reassures her that he'll charge the standard rate, then steps outside. Calling Woo-jin, he asks for the typical rate of a guesthouse room during peak season. Woo-jin, naturally, is confused. Before he can question it, Ju-won brushes him off, saying he'll just make a rough guess while opening his laptop. Woo-jin asks what exactly he's doing, but Ju-won ignores him and shifts the conversation to the caretaker and staff quarters. Woo-jin reminds him that they've already gone over all of this. Meanwhile, Seo-jin gets a string of texts from her friend, Jin-ju, asking where she is. Before she can even type a response, her phone starts ringing. She sighs and picks up, calling Jin-ju impatient, but Jin-ju dramatically claims that waiting for a reply has aged her 10 years. Jin-ju is worried since Seo-jin disappeared without a word. Seo-jin apologizes, explaining that things have been chaotic. When Jin-ju asks where she is, Seo-jin says she's in Jeju Island, which immediately shocks Jin-ju. Seo-jin never goes anywhere. Seo-jin flops onto the bed, saying she just wanted to get out of Seoul as fast as possible. Jin-ju asks if Seo-jin has heard anything from that guy, referring to Hyun-jae. Seo-jin says no, and Jin-ju instantly goes off, swearing, threatening, and cursing Hyunji's entire existence. But Seo-jin isn't sure it's entirely Hyunji's fault. She knows she wasn't the most affectionate girlfriend. Whenever he tried to be intimate, she'd push him away, using the classic "it's that time of the month" excuse. He always saw through it. He knew her cycle, but instead of pressing, he'd just sigh and suggest they cuddle instead. Later, Ju-won sets off on his run, but his thoughts keep drifting to Seo-jin. He thinks that she looks like she's carrying some kind of heavy story, and he hopes nothing bad happens to her. She also seems too thin to him. Then he recalls something, her supple chest. Okay, maybe she isn't thin everywhere. At the same moment, Seo-jin takes a walk along the beach, enjoying the sound of the waves. It's been so long since she last came to the beach. A sudden gust of wind rips her scarf from her neck, and it goes flying, landing in the water. Without much thought, she steps into the sea to retrieve it. From a distance, Ju-won spots her wading into the water and immediately jumps to the worst conclusion: she's trying to end her life. He sprints toward her, yelling for her to get out of the water. Just as she's about to grab her scarf, he reaches her, grabs her arm, and yells "guest," ordering her to come back to shore. She looks at him, confused, trying to explain, but he isn't listening. He keeps shouting about how she's still young and has so much to live for while dragging her away from the water. She struggles against him, still reaching for her scarf, and tells him to let go. She finally manages to grab it, just as Ju-won suddenly cries out in pain. His leg cramps up, and he loses his balance, and falls straight into the water. Seo-jin grabs hold of Ju-won as he continues to scream, flailing in the water. She firmly tells him to relax and trust her. When he does, with a few encouraging words, she manages to pull him back to shore. Once they're on land, she lays him on the sand and takes a moment to catch her breath before asking about his leg. Clearly embarrassed, Ju-won brushes it off, saying he's fine. But instead of thanking her, he suddenly starts shouting, telling her that if she wants to die, she should do it somewhere else, just not in front of him. Seo-jin stares at him, utterly confused, before explaining why she was in the water in the first place, and Ju-won slowly realizes his mistake. They fall into silence, just staring at each other, until Seo-jin suddenly bursts out laughing. A beat later, Ju-won joins her. After they calm down, he apologizes for the misunderstanding and stands up, dusting off the sand. He reaches out a hand to help her up, mentioning how they both look like a mess. She looks at his hand, thinking that she came to the island to relax alone and not get involved with anybody. She stands on her own, and walks past him. As they walk back to the guest house, Ju-won casually points out that she seems a little guarded, like she has a wall up when dealing with people. Then he adds that most people tend to be more welcoming toward a good-looking guy like him. Seo-jin immediately fires back, saying that most people are usually friendly towards someone as attractive as her. Ju-won grins and asks why, if she has so many admirers, she came alone. She simply says it's exhausting. He nods as if he understands, says, "I see," and walks ahead. She watches him go, cheeks flushing slightly as she mutters that he's such a kid. Later, Ju-won stands under the shower, thinking about their conversation. For some reason, the thought of other guys surrounding Seo-jin stirs something irritatingly competitive in him. She's really starting to get under his skin. Meanwhile, Seo-jin steps out of the bathroom, feeling refreshed but suddenly realizing she's starving. Just as she's about to look up places to eat, there's a knock at her door. She opens it to find Ju-won standing there. He asks if she's hungry and if she has any idea where she wants to eat. When she says no and asks if he knows any good restaurants nearby, he flashes a confident smile, saying he knows just the place. As dusk settles in, Seo-jin watches Ju-won barbecue meat, her mouth practically watering. She sips her wine while staring at him, completely focused. Ju-won catches her gaze and smirks, teasing that if she keeps looking at him like that, he might get shy. Without missing a beat, she tells him to focus on not burning the meat. When the food is finally ready, she claps her hands together and thanks him happily. Ju-won watches her dig in, thinking she seems the happiest when there's food in front of her. As they eat, he suggests they properly introduce themselves. He tells her his name, and she does the same. After the meal, Seo-jin sits by the fire, sipping another glass of wine as she watches the flames flicker. Ju-won plops down beside her, offering her some snacks. He casually comments on how well she holds her liquor. A few seconds pass before he speaks again, this time more thoughtfully. He says she seems like someone with a story, which is why he jumped to conclusions when he saw her in the water. She admits she has a lot of stories, but coming to a place this beautiful just to end things was never one of them. Ju-won asks about her story, and after a brief hesitation, she tells him. She had been with someone for over 10 years, only to find out he was marrying another woman, without even telling her. Ju-won shakes his head, calling guys like that an embarrassment. He says that from a man's perspective, her ex has no self-respect or sense of decency. Seo-jin lets out a small laugh, calling Hyunjae a loser. Ju-won asks why she's handling heartbreak alone when she supposedly has so many admirers. She says she was so dull that her boyfriend got tired of her, and lately, life has felt incredibly uninteresting. She also admits that this trip is the first time she's gone anywhere alone. She says that it was only after facing a world-shattering betrayal did she finally want to look at herself. She adds that she actually feels kind of free now, like she wants to do things she never did before. Then, without another thought, she leans in and kisses him. When Seo-jin pulls back, Ju-won blinks, clearly caught off guard. He asks what that was, and she immediately blushes. She quickly brushes it off, saying it didn't mean anything, she just wanted to try it. He asks what exactly she wanted to try, and she says something daring, something that makes her feel like none of this is real. That he asks her if kissing a guy she just met counts as daring, and then he says what she did doesn't count as a kiss, it is a peck at best or an accidental brush of lips. Seo-jin smiles as she says that it sounds like you've kissed quite a bit. Instead of answering, Ju-won leans in and kisses her, properly this time. When he pulls away, he tells her that she is an adult so she must go further than this to call it a proper kiss. She wraps her hand around his neck and whispers that she wants to go further. One thing leads to another, and they end up in the bedroom. She thinks that she isn't doing this because she is angry that Hyunjae left. She just thought that it will be okay with Ju-won since he jumped into the sea to save her. She figured it wouldn't hurt for a moment. Afterward, Seo-jin drifts into sleep, completely spent. But Ju-won? He's wide awake. And very much not done. He tells her to wake up and take responsibility for what she did to him. At a fancy hotel in the city, Hyunjae surprises Sarang with gifts for their 150th day anniversary. She's thrilled, and they toast to their future. He proudly tells her he planned everything himself to make sure it was perfect. Touched, she leans in to kiss him and whispers that she loves him. He smiles and says he loves her too, except he calls her Jaina. Sarang freezes, her excitement instantly replaced with anger. She pushes away from him, saying she has no interest in being with someone who can't even remember her name. Hyunjae immediately tries to fix it, grabbing her wrist and insisting it was a mistake. He reminds her they're supposed to be having a good time. Sarang yanks her hand away, pointing out that he's the one who ruined a perfectly good night. Without another word, she storms out, leaving him behind. Later, Hyunjae sulks at the bar until his friend shows up. His friend takes one look at him and asks where Sarang is. Hyunjae sighs, saying she left because he ruined her mood. When asked what he did, he admits he called her the wrong name. His friend bursts out laughing. Once the laughter dies down, his friend asks if he's sure about marrying someone like Sarang, reminding him that he'll have to treat her like a princess for the rest of his life. Then, more curiously, he asks if Hyunjae has heard from Seojin. Hyunjae replies by asking why would he. His friend points out that Seojin was completely devoted to him, something rare these days. Hyunjae confirms that Seojin was indeed devoted and says she had her struggles like Sarang. He reminisces about how young and innocent Seojin was when they first met and how kind she seemed back then. His friend smacks his arm, saying he deserves whatever's coming for treating someone as loyal as Seojin so poorly, but he shouldn't regret it. Hyunjae arrogantly says that everything is completely fine and that Seojin will come back to him if he says the word because, to her, he is the only one. Back on Jeju Island, Seojin sleeps peacefully while Juwon lies beside her, watching her, thinking that she's fascinating, mysterious in a way that makes him want to know everything about her. He leans in and kisses the top of her head, hoping she had just as good of a time as he did. In the morning, Seojin wakes up alone in bed, her face instantly heating up as the memories of last night flood in. She sits up, running a hand through her hair, thinking about how being with Hyunjae had always felt like an obligation, something she never truly enjoyed. Eventually, she stopped trying altogether, and he told her something was wrong with her, even suggesting she see a doctor. For a long time, she actually believed it. She reaches out, brushing her fingers against the pillow Juwon used, whispering a quiet thank you. She never knew she could feel this alive. A voice from the doorway makes her jump. Juwon leans casually against the frame, arms crossed, smirking as he points out that she should probably be saying that to the person responsible instead of his pillow. Startled, she yelps and demands to know why he's just standing there. He shrugs, saying he didn't want to wake her, though he certainly didn't expect to catch her confessing to a pillow. Flustered, she insists she wasn't confessing. He strolls over to the bed, telling her to get up since she's awake, but she yanks the duvet over her head, face and all, and orders him to leave so she can get dressed. Instead of leaving, he wraps his arms around her through the blankets, teasingly asking if she's seriously not going to show her face. She peeks out just enough to glare at him, asking what's so special about a just woke up face. He grins and casually points out that her eyes are puffy. She huffs, saying they're swollen from crying so much last night, which fills him with pride. Then she tells him to get out so she can freshen up. He finally listens, reminding her she's free to use his bathroom. Once he's gone, she heads to the bathroom, muttering about how sore her back is. She is shocked to find the tub already filled with warm water and floating rose petals. Then she spots a note stuck in the mirror. I thought you might have sore muscles, so take a nice bath and relax. I enjoyed last night, so I hope you did too. The note makes her smile. Seojin has always found it hard to deal with others. She learned early on how to smile and be friendly enough to keep things smooth, but she never let anyone in too close. Even Hyunjae, after 10 years together, never truly crossed that invisible boundary she set. That's why it confuses her how easily she opens up to Juwon. Later, they have breakfast outside. Seojin happily tells Juwon that the breakfast service at the guest house is amazing, which confuses him. When she asks him if the breakfast service isn't included in the budget, he remembers that he's supposed to be running a guest house. Quickly recovering, he tells her to let him know in advance if there's anything special she wants for breakfast, and he'll have it ready for her. Then he casually offers to make her soup in case her stomach isn't feeling great after drinking the night before. She tells him the soup he already served is more than enough. When she takes a sip, she immediately notices the rich flavor and asks if he made it himself. Juwon tells her he made a whole pot, which isn't entirely true. The lady who helps around the guest house is the real one responsible. Seo-jin continues with her breakfast while he just stares at her. When she notices him staring at her, she asks what he is looking at. He comments on how much she loves food and how well she ate last night too. Then he adds that most women act shy and dainty around him. Seo-jin responds that she has no intention of acting like that, she just wants to be comfortable. Ju-won says he hopes she stays that way as he passes her a plate of fruit. She takes a bite and asks if there's anything fun to do nearby. He yes, and offers to take her. They spend the next few hours at the beach, trying different water sports. Seo-jin firmly refuses wakeboarding, but Ju-won manages to convince her to try paddleboarding. At first, he holds on to her board, giving her steady words of encouragement. Then, without her realizing it, he lets go. When she glances back and sees him standing far behind her, she panics and immediately loses balance, toppling into the water. Ju-won bursts out laughing, until he notices her just floating there. Panic flashes across his face, and he rushes toward her, calling her name. Just as he reaches her, she suddenly splashes a handful of water in his face, grinning triumphantly. He blinks in shock before breaking into laughter, retaliating with an even bigger splash. Soon, they're both caught in a full-on water fight, their laughter ringing through the air. Meanwhile, Hyunjae stands on a rooftop, cigarette in hand, replaying his friend's words in his head. He pulls out his phone and dials Seo-jin, but it goes straight to voicemail. So he leaves a message, asking why her phone is off and saying she's making him worry. Still uneasy, he texts Jinju to check on Seo-jin. Jinju's reply comes fast and blunt, "Don't contact Seo-jin again." Back on Jeju Island, Seo-jin is way too busy enjoying a steamy shower with Ju-won to check her phone. For the next few days, Seo-jin and Ju-won are inseparable. They eat whenever they want, sleep whenever they feel like it, and do whatever pleases them. When they crave each other, they don't hold back. To Seo-jin, this trip, which started as an escape, has turned into something else, complete freedom. But she knows that once she leaves, she and Ju-won will go back to being strangers. These moments will become nothing more than memories. One afternoon, while alone at the guest house, Seo-jin is reading when her phone rings. It's Jinju, crying on the other end. Immediately, her heart clenches with worry. Later, Ju-won returns from an errand, calling out that he's back, but the house is eerily quiet. Thinking she might be asleep, he looks around, but she's nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, Seo-jin arrives at a hospital in Seoul, still carrying her luggage, where she finds Jinju in tears. She pulls her friend into a hug and asks about her mother, who is in surgery. Back on the island, Ju-won wonders where Seo-jin went when he notices a letter on the table, with a stack of checks beside it. In her note, Seo-jin explains why she had to leave so suddenly and says she's also using this as a chance to end her little adventure. She thanks him for everything and ends with a simple "take care." Ju-won stares at the letter, unable to believe she's really gone. Hours later, after the operation is a success, Jinju sighs in relief and apologizes for cutting Seo-jin's trip short as they leave the hospital. Seo-jin reassures her that she was already wrapping things up. Jinju eyes her suspiciously, noting that Seo-jin looks different, like she actually had time to recharge. Seo-jin simply nods, saying it was fun. But Jinju isn't buying it and pushes for details. Seo-jin brushes it off, refusing to spill. Then Jinju brings up Hyunjae, telling Seo-jin that he tried reaching her and, when that failed, texted her instead. When Seo-jin asks what she told him, Jinju proudly shares her response and warns that he'll probably try again. Seo-jin shrugs, saying she'll just change her number. In fact, she's moving, getting a new job, changing everything. She's done living like a fool. A week later, Seo-jin sits through a job interview. Her interviewer schemes through her resume, impressed by her experience, and asks why she left her previous job. She stammers, unsure how to answer, but he quickly tells her she doesn't have to explain if it's uncomfortable. Then, with a warm smile, Woo Jin, the interviewer, extends his hand and says he looks forward to working with her. As she steps into the elevator, the doors start to close just as another elevator nearby opens. Ju-won steps out. He heads straight for Woo Jin, announcing that he's back. Settling onto the couch, he casually asks about the new hire. Woo Jin hands him a resume, and as soon as Ju-won sees the name, he smirks. So, she's coming to him now? The week after Seo Jin left, Ju-won couldn't get her out of his head. He kept replaying their time together, counting the days since she disappeared. Eventually, he decided he had to find her. Without hesitation, he called his secretary and declared his vacation over. There was only one thought in his mind: he had to find Seo Jin, no matter what. Now, back in the present, Woo Jin blinks in surprise at Ju-won's reaction. He asks if Ju-won knows Seo Jin and how. Ju-won just grins, saying it's complicated, then casually asks when she starts. That night, Seo Jin, who has been crashing at Jinju's place, tells Jinju that she officially signs the lease for her new apartment. She thanks Jinju for letting her stay while she figured things out. Later, after Jinju falls asleep, Seo Jin lies awake, staring at the ceiling. It's been a whole week since she left Ju-won, and she wonders how he's doing. She misses the freedom she had on the island. She misses him. She thought leaving everything behind would be easy, but the memories keep lingering more than she expected. She feels strangely empty, but she still tells herself that leaving was the right choice. Now that she's back, she can return to her usual self. The next day, Seo Jin meets her former co-workers for a farewell lunch. They tell her how much they'll miss her but also mention that she seems happier now, which is why they now think that Seo Jin quitting was the right decision. After the meal, they step outside the restaurant to say their goodbyes. Just as they're about to leave, one of them realizes they forgot the gift she bought for Seo Jin. So they go get it, telling her to wait. As she stands alone, a familiar voice calls her name. She turns, and freezes. Hyunjae. Hyunji's face twists with anger as he demands to know why Seo Jin hasn't been answering him. He claims he's been worried sick, imagining something might have happened to her. She asks him why he is worried about her now when he avoided her when she tried to talk to him. After finding out about his engagement, she reached out, only for him to coldly reply that he'd get back to her. He brushes it off, saying he had his reasons. She asks if those reasons are gone now. She also asks why he's pulling this now when everything between them is already over. Hyunjae responds by asking her who said it's over. He asks when he ever said they broke up. Before she can react, he grabs her arms, his grip firm. He starts to say something, but she yanks herself free. Shaking with anger, she reminds him that he's getting married to Sarung. Hyunjae sighs, telling her not to get upset, admitting he understands why she feels this way. But before he can say anything else, one of Seojin's former co-worker returns with her farewell gift, apologizing for the delay, completely oblivious to the tension. As soon as they're alone again, Hyunjae calls her Jaina, the same name he mistakenly called Sarang in the hotel, and tells her that as far as he's concerned, they never broke up. He doesn't plan to break up with her either. He even has the audacity to add that he's not married yet, the wedding is just planned, nothing more. She tells him straight up that he's insane and that they should never see each other again. Before he can snap, Sarang calls his name. She walks up, complaining about how she thought Hyunjae was still inside. When she notices Seo Jin, she greets her with a bright smile and casually asks if everything is okay between her and Hyunjae. Seo Jin forces a polite smile, assuring her that everything is perfectly fine. Then Sarang brings up Seo Jin quitting and sweetly says she still hopes Seo Jin will come to the wedding, all while clutching Hyunji's arm. Seo Jin makes up an excuse and leaves. As Sarang watches her go, she suddenly tilts her head and muses that Secretary Hyun's name has Jin in it. The following day, Seo Jin moves into her new apartment and tries setting up on her own until Jinju shows up with a housewarming plant. Just as Seo Jin is about to thank her, Jinju's younger brother, Chonwoo, walks in too, offering his congratulations. Seo-jin blinks in surprise, she wasn't expecting extra hands. Jinju grins and insists that she needs them. With no room for argument, they get to work. Hours later, exhausted, they collapse onto the floor, taking in their hard work. Then Chonwoo suggests they eat. As they dig into their meal, the conversation shifts to Seojin's new job. She tells them she starts on Monday. Chonwoo grins, pointing out that she's getting a full reset, a new job, a new apartment, even a new number. They toast to new beginnings and enjoy the rest of the meal. Monday morning. Seo-jin heads to her new job feeling confident. She had a great dream last night, something about being inside an oyster and finding a pearl. A lucky dream. She takes it as a sign that things are finally turning around. When she arrives, Woo-jin welcomes her, shows her to her desk, and introduces her to her new co-workers. Everything is going smoothly until he says there's one more person she needs to meet, the president. As they walk to the president's office, Seo-jin feels a little nervous. First impressions matter, after all. They step inside, and Woo-jin begins the introduction. But Seo-jin freezes mid-bow. There, casually leaning against his desk, grinning is Ju-won. He tells her that it is nice to meet her, calling her secretary Hyun. She calls him Ju-won and asks him what he is doing there. He simply replies, saying he owns the hotel. She notices the plaque, 1, which shows that he is the president of the hot, Ellen stumbles, completely caught off guard. Woo-jin instinctively grabs her shoulders to steady her. Ju-won's expression shifts instantly, his easygoing demeanor disappearing as he watches. Without giving Woo-jin a chance to say anything else, he dismisses him, insisting that he and Seo-jin need to talk. Seo-jin tells herself to pull herself together. They sit facing each other in the couch with tea. She asks if he's really managing both the guest house and the hotel, and he casually admits the truth about the guest house. She accuses him of deceiving her. He apologizes but points out that if she had just given him a little more time, he could have explained everything. Before she can get a word in, he asks her if she was planning to never see him again, and if that is why she only left him a note and money, without another way to contact her. She apologizes but says they should consider the job offer cancelled. He states that she is running away again and says that he guesses that she really just wants to keep their time together as nothing more than a pleasant memory from the past with no plans of seeing him again. That's fine, he tells her, she can do whatever she wants. But with her level of carelessness, he honestly wonders which company would be reckless enough to hire her. Then he dares her to go ahead and try finding a new job. Seo-jin gently removes his hand from her face and says she just wants to go back to being strangers, surprising Ju-won. Before he can respond, she straightens up and reintroduces herself as if this is their first time meeting. He asks her if she doesn't recognize him, and without missing a beat, she insists today is the first time she's seeing him. Ju-won doesn't even try to hide his frustration. He stands, refusing to play along, and steps toward her. Instinctively, she moves back until her shoulders hit the wall. His knee slides between hers, effectively caging her in. His voice drops as he leans in, saying that his instincts react to her presence like they know her perfectly. She shoves him away, doubling down that they don't know each other. Then, without another word, she turns and leaves the office. The moment she steps outside, she leans against the door, face flushed, breathing hard. Her hand shakes slightly as she pulls out her phone, searching for the Sky Pension guest house. Sure enough, the search results confirm everything Ju-won said. He hadn't lied. At that moment, Woo-jin calls her and asks to talk to her. A few minutes later, they're sitting across from each other in a conference room. Woo-jin starts with small talk, asking if she had any trouble getting to work. Then he asks her if the president said something upsetting to her because she doesn't seem okay. When she says that she is fine, he thinks that she doesn't seem fine at all. He asks her if she and President Cha Ju-won know each other from before. Seo-jin hesitates, unsure how to respond, and stammers. Woo Jin tells her that he and Ju-won have been best friends since childhood, and when Ju-won found out she was the one he had interviewed, Ju-won was genuinely happy. He continues by saying he doesn't know the full story, but he feels like he should understand at least a little, so he can mediate between her and Ju-won, and he will hear her side first, then talk to Ju-won. Seo-jin hesitates for a while and then she says that after she left her old job, she went on a trip to Jeju Island and ran into Ju-won by chance. Just as Woo Jin is about to ask more questions, his phone buzzes with a text from Ju-won, calling him to the president's office immediately. Their conversation is cut short, and Woo Jin hurries off. Left alone, Seo-jin considers quitting. The thought is tempting. But then she shakes it off, she just works here, nothing more. Besides, Ju-won already made it clear he wouldn't let her switch jobs. Later in the day, while Seo-jin sits in a meeting with her coworkers, Ju-won stands at the window, watching her, thinking that she is cute. His conversation with Woo Jin from earlier replays in his mind. Earlier, Woo Jin had told him what Seo-jin said about them meeting each other, and he asked Woo Jin if that was all she said. Woo Jin told him that Seo-jin barely said anything before he got dragged into the president's office, then demanded that Ju-won explain what was going on between him and Seo-jin, and if they can keep working together. Ju-won explained what happened on Jeju Island. He ended his explanation by saying that he and Seo-jin spent a week together on the island, which shocked Woo Jin, who asked him what that was supposed to mean. Ju-won said it meant exactly what he said and that while Secretary Hyun seems eager to brush it off as just a fleeting connection, he isn't willing to do that. Woo Jin asked him if Secretary Hyun asked if he could cancel her employment, and Ju-won said he wasn't doing that. Then he told Woo Jin that from then on, Secretary Hyun would accompany him to all of his schedules, and of course, Woo Jin would be there too. Woo Jin argued that that is not part of Seo-jin's assigned duties, and Ju-won asked him if he was planning to disobey the president. Now, back in the present, Ju-won abruptly barges into the conference room, stunning the staff, and announces that since they have a new team member, they should have a team dinner. Then he tells Seo-jin to choose the menu, which makes her nervous. When she hesitates, Ju-won smoothly suggests grilled meat, subtly referring to the night they had grilled meat at the guest house. The staff murmur amongst themselves, shocked. The president has never suggested a team dinner before. They decide to use this rare opportunity to get closer to him. After work, the whole team gathers for dinner. Seo-jin sits next to Woo Jin, and at some point, they exchange a smile. Across the table, Ju-won sees it, and his mood darkens. By the time the dinner winds down, he's completely drunk, barely able to stand on his own. Seo-jin and Woo Jin help him to his car. Before she can leave, Woo Jin asks her to keep an eye on Ju-won while he runs to the convenience store. Left alone with him, she slides into the passenger seat. Ju-won groggily assumes she's Woo Jin and asks for water. She hands him a bottle, watching as he drinks. Then, in a slurred voice, he asks if Secretary Hyun has left. He sighs heavily, saying she's complicated. He feels like she keeps slipping further away. Ju-won continues, saying he really wants things to work between them. She stares at him, completely thrown off. Then he leans close to her, asking how long she is going to pretend not to know him. Thanks for watching. For part 2, please like and comment.
Bye!